It's 11:45. Now, over the weekend, there was the Trooping the Colour parade, and Meghan Markle, it's fair to say, got a lot of the headlines, also known as the Duchess of Sussex. It was her first appearance since marrying Prince Harry. But many were also talking about Charanpreet Singh Lal, a Cold Guard soldier who became the first to wear a turban during the Trooping the Colour parade. He's with me now on the line from Leicester. Good to have you with us, Charanpreet. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. What was it like being part of the parade?
It was a very proud moment. It was really exciting as well, yeah.
What did you think of all the coverage and the attention? Were you expecting that?
No, I wasn't. Well, a little bit, okay, I was, yeah, but I wasn't expecting it to blow up as much as it did.
Yeah. Did you get support from like the rest of the guardsmen with what happened?
Yeah, I did. Everyone's really been supportive of it, and just telling me how proud everyone is, really.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, the fact that you were talked about, and you made history is the headlines on it. How does that feel? It's quite a lot on your shoulders, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I marched onto the parade square on Saturday, I felt like there was a lot of pressure on my shoulders, and I just knew that I was going to uphold such a high honour that was upon me pretty much at the time.
What did your parents think?
My parents were very proud indeed, yeah.
Yeah, I read somewhere that you said your mum was crying.
Yes, my mum was actually crying. She ran over and she was like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you," and she just hugged me and she didn't let go for like 20 seconds or something.
Tell me why you think it is such an important thing to do, to be the first turban wearing Sikh to troop the colour. Why is that such an important thing?
I think that not many people think that they can go and achieve a job at such a high platform if they're wearing a turban, or if they even embrace their religion, pretty much. Yeah.
And I'm curious to know if wearing the turbans ever affected you previously in a negative way.
No, I wouldn't say it has, because everyone's just been really supportive of it. No one's really said anything bad about it. Even when I was in training, everyone, if someone didn't know anything, whoever didn't know, they would come up, approach me and ask me questions, and
so it's more about explaining to people, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's better if someone doesn't know and they come and approach me, and I'd rather tell them than them not know.
Do you think it will? I mean, I don't know what your hopes are with it, if you have any. Is it that you want to encourage people from different backgrounds to get into the sort of line of work that you're doing now?
No, that's not what I aim to do. But I mean, I think that it should have an impact on younger people, just people that think that hiding who they are, what religion they're from, is a good thing. I mean, you don't really have to, especially in this day and age. You can embrace who you are.
Yeah.
And I think it should be a good thing.
It's really great talking to you. Thank you for your time, Charanpreet.
Thank you very much.
Take care. That's Cold Guard soldier Charanpreet Singh Lal. You would have seen him all over the news. He became the first to wear a turban during the Trooping the Colour parade. Really interesting comments there that he just made about, people should feel that they have the space to be recognised for their religion, for religious clothing in the workplace, and that's what I want to talk about a little bit more. It is a big story for our listeners, as I mentioned. Many really proud about Charanpreet's success there. But this whole wider thing about wearing religious clothing at work, how do you feel about it? So this is part of our What's God Got to Do With It panel. It's a new feature we've got here on the show. And joining me on today's panel is Jay Singh Sohal, who practices Sikhism, also non-practising Muslim, Guleraana Mir, and I've got Arifur Rahman, who's a secular humanist blogger. Good to have all three of you here. Let me come to you first, Jay. What did you think of Charanpreet when you saw the Troop in the Colour Parade?
I thought he did absolutely fantastically well. And just hearing him after that and in the interview just now as well, he's a young lad, 22, from Leicester.
Sounds a bit overwhelmed, doesn't it?
He does, but I think he's, there's a humility there that I see, and there's a dedication to his duty and a commitment to the Coldstream Guards, which really does come through. And I think, funnily enough, he was there at the Royal Wedding a couple of weeks ago. I saw him on television flash up doing his duty. And for someone who's been in the army for 2 years, as he has, to have this honour, to be the first is always a game changer and groundbreaking. But just to hear him speak, and I think he's an absolute credit to his regiment and to the British Army.
What do you think then of the wider issue of wearing your religion to work?
I think it depends on the context. I mean, for Sikhs, and I can only speak as a practising Sikh myself, we do have that protection under law. So the Turban Rights campaign and that led to a House of Lords case in 1983, coincidentally the year I was born, enabled Sikhs like myself to grow up with no discrimination, or certainly no discrimination within public places, within the workplace, to us wearing the turban and practising our faith and identity. So there's an education piece here that we need to make people aware that the law protects turban-wearing Sikhs, specifically with the Mandla versus Lee 1983 case, and that's no different to any place of work. Certainly with Guardsman Lal's case and within the army, there is a rich history there going way back, but not a lot of people know that there was even a test case in the 60s whereby a Sikh wanting to join a UK regiment, a UK mainland regiment, had to petition the then Defence Secretary to ask for permission to do it.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of red tape, but they got through it because there was this history, this legacy of Sikhs and the valour that the Sikhs showed fighting for the British. So getting from that step through the Turban Rights case of the 80s through to now, I think we certainly do see with my community gains being made and a proud community that's able to practice their faith and identity in the workplace.
Let me bring Arifur into this because, I mean, I'm totally being devil's advocate. I don't want to rain on the Guardsman's parade. No pun intended, by the way. But what did you make of that focus on, this man's wearing a turban and this is the first and what have you? Do you think that... First of all, what was your reaction to it? Do you think that, having religion in the workplace in that respect is a good thing?
Thank you for inviting us. I've been actually doing some reading before coming here, and I went through the equality law, I think 2010, and how it creates policies within workplaces to accommodate people who want to kind of have their faith. But there is obviously limits to that, where if that causes problems with the company's own business.
If it gets in the way.
If it gets in the way, basically. So I don't know if the Equality Act actually applies to the army, if the army has a different code of conduct. But I would like to know how. I know I just heard from Jay that there actually has been precedents before in 1983, and there's been, there is a separate law for the turban itself, kind of sets it apart from all the other religious garments. But we shouldn't take this particular incident as a generalized kind of stereotypical that from now on the UK has suddenly become more acceptable to, and people can actually up their game in terms of bringing religion in the workplace. Especially, I'm from a Muslim background, although I'm not a Muslim anymore. You can call atheist, ex-Muslim. I do see a lot of Muslims, or Islamists mostly, there's a distinction, trying to bring more and more religion into this, trying to bring their identity and kind of up their identity. But we already have in the UK proper law protecting us from that sort of thing that we see.
Do you think religion should be kept at the door, like at in your home, and then?
Well, but my personal belief is that yes, religion is a personal kind of thing to your God, and generally, if you're a believer, you should kind of try to do that. But then again, we also are humanists. That means if a human being do not want to kind of work in an environment where their religion is to a certain degree not interfering with others, is not allowed to practice, then it's kind of counterproductive.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I think UK is quite good on that.
Let me bring Guleraana into this. And obviously the broader issue here, we're talking about religion in the workplace. What do you think of some of the points that Arif has made there?
I suppose I agree to some extent. I think if you are going to say that we are living in a society that appreciates multiculturalism and diversity, and we accept that people of different faiths live and work in the UK, then there has to be allowances made for people to practice. So saying that religion is something that you do at home and you can't bring into the workplace, I mean,
it's a bit naive.
It's a bit naive, but also on the other hand, you can't be so religious that it affects your working day. For example, a teacher can't leave a classroom, in my opinion, to go pray, because unless they have a classroom assistant, but even then it's so difficult to express, because on one hand, there's a lesson there that actually you have a teacher who practices Islam, and this is something that they do. They pray 5 times a day, and there's a great lesson for the pupils in that class, in a primary class, let's say. But then you also have to think that in a primary school, what's key is order. And rules, and if you've got a lesson, then you do the lesson, and you can't just leave halfway to go and take care of your prayers. So I think context, as Jay was saying, and also common sense are so important. Like, obviously we pride ourselves on especially in London, in living in a city where we get to see all different people, and we celebrate that. But religion is just so tricky, I think, because people practice at different levels. There has to be a line, but obviously you don't want to start insulting people or telling them they can't practice in a way that's comfortable for them.
I'm going to be devil's advocate. Do you think
Please
sometimes... Don't shout at me. Do you think sometimes we're too sensitive and too, like, tiptoeing around people who are religious?
I'm going to agree with the first half. I'm going to say that we're too sensitive. I don't think we necessarily tiptoe. And I think... I think sometimes... Yeah. I don't think we as sort of citizens do. I think maybe legislators or people that are trying to accommodate tiptoe in a way that's disrespectful. And I could bring up another example, like the idea of Christmas.
We'll get on to that.
Sure.
I mean, we're going to go, when it hits the hour, we'll have to go to news, but we'll come back to this. Did you want to...
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there's a dignified approach to how you practice your faith. Faith is very important across the board within the workplace, and certainly speaking from my experience and speaking to many other turban wearers, what we always acknowledge is that there is always, when you see someone who wants to ask a question about your faith, with us, of course, we stand out, we wear a turban, I have a beard, uncut beard, and you know that someone wants to know, and part of our kind of, I guess, our role, but question mark about whether you're confident or feel comfortable raising it in a workplace, is answering people's questions, and so that they are aware, so that they do know that it's an important part of your life and a part of your belief system. And certainly as a Sikh, I do see that people, because we do look different, and I'm sure it's no different for others who do wear their faith in the way we do.
I suppose it's all about how much faith you show, right? And we've just got a minute left. Just as I said, we will be coming back to this. What about something, if I can come to you, Arif, on, you mentioned Islamists there, you mentioned Muslims. You were a Muslim. What's your viewpoint on the niqab?
Oh.
You're shaking your head there.
Yeah, no, because it brings us back to the organized religion, and specifically Islam as a very strict form. And we have seen media coverage and also different types of outrage when they're not allowed to, especially Wahhabis, which is a very strict form of Islam, where they're not allowed to do certain things. I know the case of a hair salon artist who, a hijabi woman, wanted to kind of get the job, and she was not allowed, and she obviously sued the company to do that, because there was a massive organization behind her promoting that identity and that demeanor. But we don't see that sort of behavior from that many other religions. Like Sikhs are, the stereotype and the image is that they're pretty reasonable. they don't go pray on the street by blocking the street. But that's why I think people don't really have an animosity against.
We'll get on to that a little bit more. Thank you, Nalini. Let's continue with our What's God Got to Do With It panel, where today we're talking about religious clothing and wearing your religious clothing in the workplace. Do you agree with it? Do you think there should be a limit to it, or maybe it's limitless? I don't know what your viewpoint is. I've got with me Jay Singh Sohal. Also, I've got Guleraana and Arifur Rahman, a Secular-Humanist blogger, talking about all of this. Let me come to you, Jay, because we talked a little bit about, Sikhs having the right to wear their turban, and we were chatting just now to the Cold Guardsman who made history over the weekend at Troop in the Colour Parade. What about the kirpan? Because there have been cases where that's not applicable everywhere, wearing your kirpan.
Yeah, so the understanding that people should have is that the kirpan is one of the 5 Ks, so it's a very important part of the discipline of a initiated Sikh to maintain the 5 Ks upon their person at all times. And of course that does mean that, yes, if they are initiated, they do need to wear it on them. But I think within the Sikh faith there is no requirement for what a minimum size should be for a kirpan. That's quite important. I think when interpretations or when people say that, it can be an inch or 2 inches, that's something that they're applying themselves within kind of an understanding of Sikh faith. There is no such requirement like that. But again, it's being sensible within a work environment or even a school environment. When I was 16 and at school, I maintained the 5 Ks on my person. And it was with me trying to practice my faith, keeping the 5 Ks and making sure that I was sensible about it. So I think that with the kirpan issue, of course, it is quite sensitive, but it's being sensible. It's about, okay, what can I wear? And by and large, a lot of initiated Sikhs, men and women, do wear it under their garments. That allows me to practice my faith, but doesn't become a cause or a problem or an issue.
Do you think there's ignorance around it, though? Because you had the Italian Supreme Court, I think it was last year, they ruled against a Sikh migrant who wanted to carry a kirpan or ceremonial knife in public. Even that word, I say, people call it a knife. You would say that's probably not the right word to use. And then also there have been schools haven't they, that have banned
the kara, the iron bracelet, if you like.
Yeah.
Yes, the kara has been a bit of an issue, and there's been a test case in Cardiff many years ago about that. And again, I think it's a question for us, certainly for the Sikh community going out. We don't proselytise, but we do need to raise more awareness about what the 5 Ks mean to those who are initiated and therefore have to carry it. And it's also important to say that within British law, the 5 Ks as covered by national dress does have a level of protection. But again, it's about being sensible, being in an environment where you are actually able to practice your faith within the confines of the requirements, but also not causing issues or problems to yourself or to others. So, for example, if you were going swimming or if you were doing something in an environment where actually it might be harmful, but being able to maintain that. I know plenty of people who are able to be flexible enough with the maintenance of the 5 Ks upon their person, whilst also being able to undertake many, many jobs.
Arif, just listening to that, what's your, as someone you're a secularist, is it fair to say that you would probably ideally think, look, we should have none of this in public, or am I being a bit extreme?
Depends on, for example, when I was listening to Jay, I was thinking to myself literally that if all Muslims used to think that same way, because what he was saying that, although he's got belief and all these requirements that he's got, but when he's actually trying to balance out between his practical life and the environment that he lives in, he's being considerate. But generally, especially outraged Muslims are seen to be doing the opposite. They actually try to impose their belief and they try to demand that their belief be
not all
respected.
Muslims.
I'm not saying all Muslims, but I'm talking about the outraged ones, the Islamist type who wants to have an agenda and an agency and try to push forward, which is an organized effort. And I know that they're actually not acting on their own because they have kind of a group behind them. And that's where I think the issue about religion, especially with Muslims, comes into play, because I'm sure not all Muslims are like that. But then again, the training that Muslims get, the source of those trainings are not always humanist type, as in not in our definition humanist, but caring for others. Like I was hearing from Jay that they care for other people and the laws.
So wait, do you feel, and if I can bring you into this as well, Guleraana as well, do you think when we talk about religious groups wanting, you know, their religion to be recognised and known in the workplace in this specific discussion we're having, you think it's Muslims that are the ones that are the problem in your eyes?
Well, most of the time, when it comes to religion, especially in the UK, we have seen them to be the most being outraged.
See, I think that this is a common fallacy that the media perpetuates, and this is why we have these issues, because we wouldn't be having this conversation if we were talking about nuns in habits, or, you know, white women wearing a headscarf, or potentially practicing Jews wearing the, I believe it's the kippah.
The kippah, yeah.
I just feel that because, you know, I completely appreciate the political climate that we live in, that Islamatization is an issue, we have terrorism, etc. But the common Muslim does not hold those beliefs. And I think when the media and people on panels like us talk about angry, outrageous Muslims, we're not helping the cause. And
is it a case of, look, those people are not, you know, they're not reflective of most Muslims?
Agreed. And I also agree it's dangerous for us to keep saying, oh, they're not real Muslims, let's not talk about them. Yes, we absolutely need to talk about them. And we need to go into those communities and break them down and talk about how they are practicing incorrectly. But when we keep talking about religious garments and we focus, as this panel has done, on Islam, or let's face it, we kind of are talking about the niqab or the hijab, right? Because that's what this conversation is.
But why is that though? Because I think there's been loads of panels talking about religion in the workplace, and we can talk about all religions, but Islam always ends up becoming the focus.
I think if you statistically look at all the employment tribunal, cases, and I don't have the data in front of me, but I can kind of, with some assurance, say that at least major portion of them would be about women trying to wear something that that particular case the employer is not happy with. So it's not. I'm sure it's nothing to do with the Christians or the others, because in here Christianity has lost its privileged position, but Islam in the public eye.
You think?
Well, that the Archbishop of Canterbury says so, and say, asking Christians that you suck it up. It's sorry that they're saying Christian has lost its privileged position in the public eyes, because I think they have moved into more kind of.
But that's not if that is true, that's not the fault of another religion. That could be that people are moving away from.
No, he was commenting against another archbishop who was claiming that Christians are being persecuted. He was trying to pamper, and then Archbishop Canterbury did the more sensible thing, saying that stop promoting this identity thing. Christians don't really have to be Christians anymore, because we have kind of evolved further into human beings, and we don't push our religion into the public life.
But you do hear about Christian people taking, cases of not being able to wear a cross, for example, in the workplace to court. So.
Oh, yeah. But I'm saying the statistical, if you see all the tribunal cases that goes through, if you put them categorized by religion, I have a feeling, I'll try to look into this later on, but I have a feeling that it would be mostly Muslims trying to keep their religion. And I know that it's not individual Muslims deciding to do that, because I think there is a organization behind, not one organization, but the whole of pushing Islam as an identity for the immigrants. Okay. This whole conspiracy that behind it.
This is a separate debate, isn't it? So
but it's connected.
In the first hour, I was talking about diversity and the need for diversity. Some people may think there isn't. Some people do think there is in literature, which was our focus, but also diversity generally. And part of having diversity in the workplace is allowing people to wear their religious clothing or whatever they is part of their identity. Surely, right?
Yeah, I think just to come in on that, it's about people being comfortable and therefore productive within their work confines and their work environment. I wear my turban to work. I'm wearing a suit today. I'm not usually, but if I decided to come in wearing my patka, or if I didn't cover my head, I'd feel a bit weird. I've always had my head covered as a Sikh adherent and in respect to practicing my faith. But there are occasions where, the work confines might require me to do so. And I'm thinking many years ago when I was an ITV reporter, I did a feature on sports and went scuba diving. Now, I wouldn't be able to do that with my turban on. I wore a patka in that instance. And we know as Sikhs that there are many occasions we see, whether it's the Monty Pythons of this world or other sports personalities, that in environments, respect is still being showed.
Probably you should have been more creative and come up with something like burkini. Like for your swimming friendly turban.
But the point to
I don't think you like the burkini, do you?
It goes back to this identity thing. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, coming back to the issue of the workplace, not, I'm sure someone could pick up on that idea, but it's about being comfortable in your workplace. And
goodness, what did I do?
I mean, go on, Arif. What is it that you...
No, I just dawned an idea in his head, I guess, coming out with a swimming-friendly turban that he was not allowed to, right?
Is there a market for that? A waterproof turban?
Who knows? Maybe that's for someone else to take up. But for myself,
I claim copyright for this.
But Nike has a range of... I think it's Nike has a range of hijabs for female athletes now. So it's like, I think that's diversity, because who says that Muslim women can't be athletes? You know, there's plenty of women across the world that live in Islamic countries that are now discovering themselves and being like, you know what, I'm strong, I'm fit, I'm capable. And I think if you think of the stereotype of Muslim women, you are thinking of quiet women that sit at home, that look after children, that, in Saudi Arabia, we couldn't drive until like 6 months ago. So there's this almost feminist reveal of Islamic women at the moment. And I think that that's important. And the fact that Nike is making hijabs for athletes, and, I'm sure I'm looking at Arif because I appreciate what he might say in response to this, but it's allowing women to embrace something that they want to do while still being true to what they believe. Whether I agree with what they believe or not, that's a separate issue. But I don't think that we should be judging these women or making it difficult for them to do both parts of their lives.
And there is a level of empowerment that we do see there, absolutely. I mean, we've got it. We've seen a recent rise over the past 10 years with Sikh women wearing turbans as an expression of their faith, and that is empowering. So I think, yes,
is it allowed?
Completely, yeah. Whatever, in terms of maintaining the 5Ks and the turban, which protects the hair, it absolutely applies to women as well as men. That is an empowering quality, and I think where that allows a person, speaking specifically about the workplace, to feel comfortable, to feel confident, and to go out and be more productive in society, then absolutely it should be encouraged.
I have a different take on this, Anno, you would say. The thing is, why it looks like it's a very roundabout way of empowering women. I mean, are you saying, not you, I mean, generally, in the 60s and 70s, we've seen like Iran and other currently very Islamized nation, we used to see women looked slightly brownish, because of their origin, but generally they look like any other standard women in the world. And obviously nowadays it's completely the opposite. Are you saying that Islam suddenly has become Islam and before it was not Islam? And at that time, they obviously went to swimming competitions and they didn't have to come up with creative ideas to keep their identity, which was suddenly introduced to them over the last 30 or 40 years. I don't know by who, but it's not helping the actually women. They should actually go back and saying, why even I have to wear or adhere to these made up things in this world, and then, try to empower myself.
Do you have a viewpoint on that? I mean, there is an argument there, isn't there, that the bikini is more or less a new kind of creation? Is that...
No, it serves the identity purpose of the Wahhabis who tried to create a pan kind of worldwide Islamic identity, thereby kind of creating this ummah, as they called it, with 1.some billion people, and creating other political and business, means.
Okay, let me bring in Sam. Sam's called in. He's been listening to our debate. Morning, Sam, or afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon.
What would you like to say about this? So we're talking about religious clothing in the workplace. Do you think it's a good idea, or do you think people should keep religion at home? Where do you stand on it?
Well, firstly, so I've been brought up in a Hindu family, yeah. But so as time, in all honesty, when I grew up, I used to think why do Muslim women wear hijabs? It's a bit stupid. But then as I grew older, went through adolescence and stuff, you sort of look at women in a different way. Do you know what I mean? So I think to be modestly dressed and to wear a hijab and stuff, it's actually a good idea, because then you're protecting yourself from sort of a sexual view from other men. And since we live in a secular country, I don't see a problem in wearing the hijab. I mean, do you know what I mean? As long as you're being professional and doing your job. And what's wrong with covering yourself up and being modest?
Okay. I'd like to get Guleraana on that one.
I agree with the second half of what you just said, Sam. I think there should be no problem in women wearing whatever they want. And I think I mean that statement to the fullest of its extent, right? And I think this is why it's quite difficult for me to be here, because there's aspects of what Arif was saying that I do agree with. But I think if women are choosing to practice Islam, then we need to make ways of accommodating that, like making hijabs.
Yeah.
But also to what you're saying, there is absolutely no need for women to be modest. What does modesty mean? At the moment, I am wearing a strappy jumpsuit.
Well, he talked about some
does
sexual...
That make me... No, but does that...
I mean, though,
he said, by looking at somebody, you're suddenly having sexual thoughts, and by covering yourself up, you're stopping that thought in that man's head.
Well, it's not so much that. It's just that if a pair of, breasts are in your face, it's hard not to look, is it?
You can look, mate. Look ahead, but that doesn't give you permission to go any further.
Sam, so what are you saying? So if you're in the workplace and a woman's not covered up, it's distracting for you. And when I say not covered up, if she's showing a bit of cleavage.
No, the thing is, if you're in an environment with teenage boys, then obviously, they're going through changes where they're going to look. But I'm older now. I'm 26, so I've got a certain level of self-control to not look. But what I'm saying is, why have a problem with women that do want to cover themselves up and wear a hijab? And do you know what I mean? As long as they're being professional and doing their job, there's no...
But I think you probably need to speak to more Muslim women, because I don't think they're wearing the hijab or the niqab to stop you from having sexual thoughts. I think it's a bit deeper than that. And maybe this is about men perhaps trying to control themselves.
Wearing the hijab was to just sort of protect evil eyes, negative eyes on you.
What's negative eyes? What's evil eyes? I don't understand. Women looking good and inducing desire on a man it's very inherent in our psyche, because we are human beings. We only started wearing clothing 10,000, 5,000 years ago. Before that, we used to be evolutionary path, and then to keep the progression of life, you have to have some sort of attraction to the opposite sex, so that that's in our gene. We can't avoid that. But obviously, civilization have taught us that yes, there are rules and laws. You can't just suddenly jump on a woman and suddenly.
Guys, at the end of the day, we live in a secular country, so every woman has got the right to choose what they wear to work. I'm saying I've not got a problem with women who want to show their body off. The issue is, why have you guys got an issue with women that want to wear a hijab to work?
I don't.
If anything, you should have more
niqab.
So
to be fair, Sam,
the niqab.
It's more about the niqab. It wasn't the hijab.
Yeah. So the hijab, and the niqab. So my personal view, and from what I've heard from my friends that are Muslim, the hijab is part of the faith, but the niqab is something that's been interpreted after, and it's not necessarily a requirement. So
I'm going to ask you a quick question.
I think the niqab is a bit of an extreme. But the hijab, there's nothing wrong with it, really.
From my own life experience, I can tell you something. I think that I have very dim view about mostly religions, especially Islam, because it actually treats women as a second-class citizen. And the way by putting a woman...
I don't think the religion does, do they? I think you could argue that it's the culture.
Well, it's in religion itself. It specifies. For example, in the law, in a Sharia country, where if you're a man, you can give evidence, but it would require two women. Kind of similar. It's like a half. Just going back to the point I was trying to make.
Let's get back on the path
quickly. Is that it actually does not allow a woman to treat herself as an equal, because in my own company where I actually work, I have seen women who wear hijab are generally try to keep to themselves because they've been taught that you are not allowed to speak to other men, so that, to avoid this sexual desire thing that you are talking about. And that actually hinders, I think, their communication and their progress in a company, because if they are seen as a standard normal women, they should not have to be worried about other men, other co-workers as men. And then,
but it's interesting. I mean, I suppose going back to the workplace, I know women who wear the hijab. They work here in the office who are very interactive, who do mix with people, and surely it's down to your personality.
Yeah, I was talking about my personal experience.
I think also, and you did pick up on this, it's interpretation. I think the text is one thing, right? The Quran is a text that we read, we disseminate, we follow. However, and, I'm just going to say this, the people that are interpreting the text have always been men, right? We live in a patriarchal society.
Very good point.
The Islam came from the Middle East, which was nomadic. It was ruled by men. Those practices that we have are cultural. And what I am seeing now is this wave of women fighting back and owning the fact that they believe in something and they want to express it themselves. And also it does come from interpretation. I had Sunday school, Islamic Sunday school, for a very large chunk of my life. I grew up, whether I choose to practice now is something else. But what I loved about going to those lessons was that I had a teacher, Mr. Atta, he's passed away now. He was an Egyptian Muslim man who taught us the most beautiful version of Islam I've ever had. We were a group of young people that was equally men, boys and girls, and he empowered us girls to do what we wanted. He did not tell us that we weren't allowed to do certain things, that we had to do certain things, that we had to cover up. He taught us what the Quran said, and he let us make our own decisions. So for me, I always find it really difficult to have these conversations about Islam, especially because I've chosen not to practice it, but also because I grew up with such a lovely, holistic, liberal view of Islam that when I hear men talking about the way that women should be, it disgusts me, A, because I don't believe that's true, and B, because I am such a stoic feminist that I think that culturally and Islamically, we just have completely lost our way.
That's true.
I
think you got lucky in that sense.
Let me bring in Wahid, who's called in as well. Afternoon, Wahid. What would you like to say?
Hi, good afternoon. I agree. With that Hindu caller that called up, saying that I'm a Muslim myself, right? And I'm a husband as well. My wife works, she wears the hijab, and she wears that because she wants it, because Islam says cover your hair, be modest. She can wear what she wants for me, because she's for me and I'm for her.
She wants it, or because Islam says so? Which one?
Sorry?
You said two sentences. She wants it, and because Islam says so. Which one is it?
Islam talks about modesty. Islam talks about haya. Islam talks about libas. I don't know what surah. I think it's in Surah An-Nisa or Surah Baqarah, or one of the two surahs. For the woman, a woman should be modest. She should cover her face, her chastity, her body, not showing anything revealing. Now, the analogy that I gave to you, the person that I spoke to before I got through to yourself, Nomia, was, if you got two Muslim sisters walking down the street, one covered up, right? One not wearing any revealing clothes, and the other one wearing tight-fitted clothes, and a warm-blooded male walking down the street on the other side doesn't know nothing about anything.
Cold-blooded male.
All right, cold-blooded, sorry. Cold-blooded male, right?
I mean, I have not met any. Cold-blooded
Wahid,
snakes.
I think we should lock men up. I think we should.
I'm so down.
We should cover men up.
Cold-blooded men. Goodness me.
Listen. Men are I'm a courier by trade, so when I'm driving, I see women, but I only look at them, have one glance. That's what men are supposed to do. Have the one glance, and after that, not look at them again. And I try my best not to do that the second time. Now, in a workplace, a woman should be modest. I'm totally for it. My wife, she wears a hijab when she works. She's a teacher, and she wears modest clothes. That's her will. That's what Islam says. So she's following the laws of what Islam states.
I mean, why wouldn't you look to an attractive woman twice? What stops you?
Well,
Because you're a
Islam
husband,
says,
or because Islam says so?
Islam says you're allowed one
Okay.
glance.
Why? Do you not ask Islam what's the logic behind that?
No, because you see, the Quran clearly states, I mean, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ.
So you don't
Follow the
question it,
Quran.
okay.
Follow the
Sometimes you
Quran and
Can I
follow
say
it.
we've got about a minute? Wahid, thank you so much for calling in. And we
Cool.
have so
I
many
learned-
people. We've got people calling in, but we've got to go to the news
Yeah,
in a
this
minute.
was interesting.
I think we should-
Cold-blooded men. I learned something
I feel
new
like
today.
I just annoyed half of the UK population.
I know. I mean, it's a really interesting discussion, and I mean, it is always interesting because it does end up focusing on Islam a bit more. And do you think, just very quickly, that is because? Why do you think it is? Is it the clothing, isn't it? The niqab, I think, is always the.
It's the
one that gets
niqab.
people
It's
talking.
also that we're en vogue to like Muslim bash. These same patriarchal and male-female hierarchical systems appear in Judaism. They appear in Christianity. They appear in all world organized religions. But because Islam is popular and we like to bash it, that's where we end up, right? We need to know. If you want to talk about men and women in society, then we need to talk about our society as it exists across the world.
Let's do that
Leave
soon.
religion out of it.
Let's do that soon. It's so wonderful to have you all
Thank
here
you.
for the discussion.
It was entertaining.
Thank you. That's Arif there and Guleraana as well. It's just coming up to 12:30. Asian Network reports.
Our top story, we hear the verdicts from a big grooming case